Welcome to the Masters of Wellness podcast. I'm Edward Curtin with a few extra co-hosts here today. We've got Chuck the Cat Whisperer. Hello, buddy.
Hey.
We have Kari the Healer. Hello, Kari. Good to see you.
Hi, guys.
And Keith, the amazing leader, also joining us today as a co-host. Today's guest is a living legend, Dr. Kenneth H. Cooper, the Father of Aerobics. Imagine running 38,000 miles, writing 20 books, and still leading a global wellness movement at 94 years of age.
Welcome to the Masters of Wellness podcast, your ultimate path to holistic health, wellness, and success. Discover the powerful fusion of Eastern wisdom and Western science, designed to balance your mind, body, and spirit. Our channel brings you holistic wellness practices, effective strategies to boost productivity, and insights on stress reduction and active aging. Join our global community and transform your life with holistic wellness. Cheers to a healthier, happier you.
For me, this episode is also personal. I first met Dr. Cooper in 2011 as part of the mission to bring the Cooper brand to China. It's a journey that's led to many memorable moments together in both the USA and China. Dr. Cooper, it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Ed. My pleasure.
Do you have any specific memories or highlights that you remember about your visits to China in those early days?
As an 18-year-old young man in southern Oklahoma, I dedicated my life at a Christian meeting to become a full-time missionary to China. I don't know why that I had that feeling, but over the years, I never felt the call to go to the seminary to become a full-time medical missionary to China in some rural area. But in 2013, when I had the privilege of being with President Xi in the Isle of Manhan, I heard him make the statement that the most fearful enemy to the health of the Chinese children is their obesity. As they've accepted our American habits or our American problems, they will do something about it. That was a tender touch for me to realize that the Chinese are beginning to realize that they have a problem, like we have the United States. And so after that first visit to China in 1988, I've had 12 subsequent visits to China. And I think I'm probably better known in China than in the United States. I think that was the Lord working in a unique way. I think that's why we're here today and why we're talking about China. Well, I love the Chinese people. I think they love me. I'm looking forward to going back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do remember there was a time you came to Shenzhen in China and we had arranged a big conference, and the conference was about East meets West. And on the stage at that time, we had two 83-year-old young gentlemen. One was from the scientific background, Dr. Cooper, and the other one was a Buddhist monk. He was the same age as you as well. And during that conference, we had the opportunity to listen to both sides of the Eastern wisdom and the Western science and look for how do we balance those two things together. Do you remember that particular conference?
Yes, I do. That was my son, Tyler, that was with me. It was back in 2017. So all the trips to China I've been enjoyable. I've been all over China, both as a tourist and as a professional person. So China's been very dear to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it was during those years when we were exploring the Fitnessgram introduction to China as well, working with a few other people to help bring Fitnessgram into Chinese schools.
And now we're considering working with the President's Council to have Fitnessgram be the national test here. Whether that happens, I'm not quite sure. But they're listening to us now about what we've done with our history of Fitnessgram, which I've discussed in some detail in my latest book, Growing Healthy as You Grow Older, because we started this in 2007 in Texas, our first testing in 2008, and found that the Fitnessgram, which tests strength, endurance, and flexibility, 6 different tests were performed. The more tests they could pass on the Fitnessgram, the better grades they made in school, because what affects the heart affects the brain. We noticed they had a decrease in absenteeism according to the number of tests that they passed, and a reduction in gang and drug problems. So what do you want our American children? What do you want the children around the world to be? To be in better health. Look forward to the future, because a deconditioned child, an overweight child, becomes a deconditioned adult and an obese adult. So again, we're trying to be aware of that, because we have a problem here along the border in Texas with Mexico of having steatohepatitis. And that's children that are so obese, it's affecting their liver. And that's called steatohepatitis. It's a major problem in this country and abroad. And we're trying with the new book, we're trying to Cooperize the world because we know what we can do when people get Cooperized. One dramatic things we have is a study we conducted of roughly 30,000 women and 70,000 men who had come to our clinic at least 20 times over a period of 45 years. And we found they're living 10 years longer than the national average. Our women are averaging 90.4 years, our men 86.5 years. The average life expectancy of an American woman is 81 years. American man is 76 years. So the average is only 78. United States, our group, it's 88. And we rank 47th in longevity because we're spending way too much of a health service dollar on desperate measures that often prolongs death, not life, a miserable few days. So spending twice as much money as anybody else in the world that has such poor statistics is a tragedy which I'm trying to change.
Wow, incredible. And Dr. Cooper, I have been fortunate enough to visit the Cooper Aerobics Center in Dallas, Texas. That is an incredible facility. That's also where I met Keith a few times. He's been a leader there for many, many years. And one thing I noticed when I went into the fitness center there is there were people that were much, much older than me that were much stronger and much faster and fitter than I was. So that was, number one, it was very alarming. But number two, it was really, really inspiring as well. The average age of the members at Cooper Center certainly must be like over the average of the average fitness center. Is that right?
So that is true. And we have people that up to 1,000 people exercise here at one time, one day. But as of October last year, we had so many members, have 4,000 members at our fitness center, we had to close the membership. And now there's a waiting list, people trying to join our club. So that's the enthusiasm I like. I want people to realize, I pointed out in this new book, that your health, your longevity is what you do for yourself because you can't rely upon the government, you can't rely upon the insurance company, and you can't rely upon the physician unless he or she is trained in preventive medicine. Because the second part of the book is I'm trying to resurrect preventive medicine to be an acceptable specialty of medicine. I was in medical school back in the Houston, Oklahoma, and I was told that preventive medicine was the Cinderella of the medical specialty because there's no profit in health. They told me almost 55 years ago, I came to Dallas, and I said I was going to be starting a preventive medicine center. And they said, you cannot do that in Dallas. You cannot be successful financially, even make ends meet, if you try to limit your practice taking care of healthy people. I said, just wait and see. Gone from a two-room office and 2 employees now to a 30-acre facility. We have 31 full-time physicians, total staff of 550 people, and we've certainly made ends meet. Because of why? People ask me going from ground zero, I had the wrath of the Medical Society on my back, and for the Board of Censors, all these difficulties we had in the early days, we've overcome those. Because number one is divine intervention. I'm convinced that I wouldn't be here today with 95% of my medical school classes already died if I hadn't had that change in my life. But number one is because divine intervention. I've had to make decisions over the years. I want to go one way, I went the other way. If I go the way I wouldn't want to be, I wouldn't be here. Number two is a fantastic staff. I speak to corporate groups all over the country, and I tell them you're going to be just as successful as your staff makes you. We have a fantastic staff. Number three, we've proven it's cheaper, more effective to prevent disease than to find a cure. And we've proven that with one of our studies called the Medicare study to show that people in top levels of fitness had 36% reduction and Alzheimer's and dementia. And then finally, if people realize they have a need and you provide a service, get the results they want, they'll make you successful in any field. That's why 150,000 patients are a database and a 74% return patients. So we have the largest database in the world now, which people can follow some for as long as 55 years. And the thing that makes ours unique is we have the largest study in the world in which we measured fitness objectively by treadmill time. Because most of these large studies, they just ask people what they do in the way of physical activity. People ask that question, they give you the answers they think you want, they exaggerate, sometimes they outright lie. And the correlation between what people say they do when they perform the laboratory on the treadmill is less than 0.3. So that has made us unique. I take credit for that. I give God credit for that to make us unique, now having an impact on the world. When I mentioned that we've been interviewed by CNN, this occurred in November 2023. When we we premiered one of our 4 major documentaries to try to promote preventive medicine around the world. And number 1 is for physicians, number 2 is for medical students, and the final 2 are for the general public, called The Power of Prevention. The last one is 42 minutes in length. The one we premiered is entitled The Power of Prevention, the World Impact of Aerobics. It was picked up by CNN. They had a reporter come down to interview it. You can still go to CNN and type in homepage and Cooper Exercise and see that interview. They told us it's been downloaded by 729 million people around the world. So say we have a world impact on exercise is not a mistake now. It's something that, thank the Lord, we're having impact from the world. And I want this impact to be for good, to educate people that they can take care of themselves. They can live longer. And I'm trying to see the example of that being in my 95th year. So these are things we tried to prove in the book. And the final thing is trying to bridge the gap between fadism and scientific legitimacy. You exercise the practice of medicine. And I have, with over 700 articles published now in peer-reviewed journals, the results are too impressive to be ignored. Just recently, one premiere, and I'm very proud of this, happened just the last part of September, that the New England Journal steadfastly refused to publish any articles, anything from the Cooper Clinic in Dallas. In fact, they didn't publish very little things from Dallas. Other than Boston for 2 years, going to Harvard, I don't think the people at Harvard think that anything can be good coming out of Texas. But there was an article in which they published not long ago in which they tried to predict longevity by using the standard risk factors: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, cigarette smoking, obesity, all these various things. But they left out inactivity. I couldn't believe that because there's fantastic data showing the value of being active. So I sent a letter to the editor. I think it'd be possible they'd even possibly publish that. But they published that. This was the 29th of last month that they published that. And for the first time, we bridged that gap to break the barrier to get something published, even though it was a letter to the editor. And they told that the authors of the article came from Germany, and they had 1 million people. They had tried to determine longevity by the risk factors. And so in response, the authors apologized to me in the New England Journal for not including the very important factor of inactivity. But WHO published a few years ago that we have over 500 million people globally that are totally sedentary. They are totally inactive, and it costs us some $47 billion a year. That's about $400 billion over a decade. They could have been prevented if people had corrected their inactivity. So we got a worldwide movement now. It started here, and all I can say when I hear that is praise the Lord.
Incredible. Dr. Cooper, I mentioned just at the beginning of our episode, my mother, Biba. Just give a wave to Biba. She's going to watch this later. She'll be super chuffed that you've said hi to her. Biba, that's a shout out to you. Now, the reason I mention that is my mum has been in the health and wellness industry for most of her life. She was an aerobics instructor back in the 1980s. She used to put on the leotards and have the tape recorder and teach the aqua and the aerobics classes. I was the DJ. I used to mix the cassette tapes for her and press play and press pause for her at the classes. So that's where I got my inspiration for the fitness industry as well. Her first memory of your name was actually reading your book back in those early days. It was one of the books that she studied to learn more about aerobic exercise and the benefits that she was able to share with her clients. So going back to that early book, that was book number 1. The title was called Aerobics. I still remember the front cover of it. How has your knowledge, information, and the lifestyle programs evolved over that time from book number 1 to where we are now with book number 20, Grow Healthier as You Grow Older? What has happened and what sort of transitions and evolution have you seen over that time?
Before I answer that question, I'll reflect back on the word aerobics was not invented by Jane Fonda. That was in 1968. The reason I have to say that because my wife of 66 years, Millie, says, I typed the first book. I'm the mother of aerobics, not Jane Fonda. That's interesting. But what have we changed since the first book? Well, aerobics, my feeling and concept was that people exercise more is better. You couldn't run down a good thing. But over the years, we realized that people run more than 15 miles a week. that they were having a lot more injuries and people running less than that. So we changed that. We shouldn't run more than 15 miles a week. Unless you are a competitive athlete, you have to do that. Other thing that we had to change over the years is that people get their aerobic points, but they ignore their cigarette smoking, their obesity, their diet, all these various things we now call being Cooperized. And I'd have distraught widows that tell me my husband followed your recommendations exactly and then died of a heart attack. So we had to broaden the concept of exercise just being the only key to good health. So that's why I published my 5th book, The Aerobics for Total Wellbeing. It brought the whole concept of diet and exercise and stress management, all the various things that we're promoting at the present time. So that's what we've really promoted that in the present book. I've made mistakes, but I have changed some of my recommendations over the years, not because to try to make more money. That makes me sick when I hear that. But it's because when we have undeniable evidence to prove something needs to be changed, I will change that. I think that's why we've been successful, because I've changed my recommendations books based upon undeniable research. A lot of that coming from us, but a lot of that coming from other people around the world. So I think that's why we've stood the test of time. The aerobics program has lasted all these years because it has periodically changed as we have new data. And I'll continue to do that as long as I live.
Yeah, I agree with you that in the early days when you were designing these programs, you had opportunities to work with astronauts from NASA going to space, with elite athletes, with famous people, government officials and movie stars and all sorts of people. So you were able to collect some amazing data from that experience as well. So I've seen how that has evolved over the years. And one thing you mentioned there was about getting Cooperized. So what does that mean to people that don't know? It means following the Cooper 8 habits. Do you want to just give us an overview of those Cooper 8 habits?
Because that's if you want to get the benefits and see why do most people exercise year after year, because it makes them feel good. We know that people are physically fit compared to those not physically fit. They are less depressed. They're less of a hypochondriac, improved self-image, much more positive attitude towards life. Yes, that's what we've done. But we've looked at other groups too. We have in the book, we have a section, you said, on elite athletes, people like Frank Shorter, Steve Prefontaine, people like that, to find out if these elite athletes are born or made. To determine whether or not this was genetically endowed, we did muscle biopsies. And we took a muscle biopsy from the quadricep muscle in the lower leg. And we were able to show that these runners, they have predominantly slow twitch fibers, 80% slow twitch fibers. I had my muscle biopsy. It was only 45%. But then one of the gentlemen in the group that we tested, his name was Don Cardon, and he had only 40% of slow twitch fibers, but they were twice the size of anybody else, because what he didn't get from his genetics, he got from his training program, and he placed 4th in the Olympic marathon in Montreal in 1976. So we came to the conclusion that these athletes can basically be born genetically, but they can be made. So don't give up. If you weren't born with good genes to make you an elite athlete, because you can overcome that, as Don Cardon did that. But the second thing I'm very pleased to have in the book is the work we did with the Brazilian World Cup soccer team. Because shortly after my book came out in 1968, that was in March of 1968, I was invited to speak in Fontainebleau, France, at the Congress International Sports Militaire. I was still in the Air Force at that time. At that meeting was a gentleman named Claudio Coutinho from Brazil. He heard me give a presentation at that conference on aerobics. And he said, this might be unique for training the Brazilian World Cup team at sea level, Rio de Janeiro, to participate at 7,200 feet in Mexico City. And I said, yes. And so he came to San Antonio, where I was living at the time. We worked out a program for the Brazilian World Cup team. We used the Cooper test, which is now worldwide too, the 12-minute test. On that first test, they averaged 1.86 miles in 12 minutes. We had made them run 20 miles a week. They had to get 100 points per week, not including their soccer. To do that, they had to run 20 miles a week. By April 1969, in 1970, they had gone in 1969, 1970 to running 2.3 miles in 12 minutes. I told these athletes, if you follow my guidelines, these things will occur. Number one, it will delay the onset of fatigue. Vince Lombardi once said that fatigue makes cowards of us all. Most injuries occur in the second half. Number two, you'll play better in the second half of the games. International soccer is 45 minutes. no rest, and then 30 minutes rest, and then 45 minutes. All teams go down. But if you're a top level of fitness at the beginning, you'll be at the top level at the end of the match. And thirdly, you'll perform better at the latter games of the season because you reduce the injury. So with that, they went to Brazil. They went from Brazil, they went to Mexico City. Then they won 6 consecutive matches and winning and retiring the World Cup. It was the third time they'd won the World Cup. And they were tied. They were tied with four groups, so 2 groups are 1 goal ahead of the 6 games that they won. And they were tied 1-1 with Italy in the finals. They won in the second half by a score of 4-1. So I became an icon in Brazil. I've been there 21 times. You had that privilege a few years ago of running a 10K with Ferdinand Melo Collor, the president of Brazil. And we had to run. And of course, they call jogging in Brazil, they call it doing the Cooper. And so we had a cameraman went the whole way for 6.21 miles. And he was younger than I am, better shape than I am. We ran together. And so I couldn't keep up with him. So I'd ask him short questions, recording long answers to try to keep up with him. And we had this photographer, had a big, heavy television camera on his shoulder. And he would leapfrog. He'd run ahead, get a picture of us, run ahead, get a picture. We kept running. You think people were in great shape, without question. But the next day, headlines all over Brazil that Collor does his Cooper with Cooper. So I've been to Brazil many times. Says I love the country, they love me. Last time I was there, I was speaking at an international meeting in Sao Paulo. There were 1,600 people came from throughout the world, or throughout South America primarily. And so as I usually give the keynote speech, as I did that morning, but I usually walk out because I can't understand Spanish or Portuguese. So I walk out, and about 300 people walked out with me. In the past, when I was in Brazil, well, I would want to autograph everything from toilet paper to newspaper wrappers from chewing gum, whatever it may be. But now it's just iPhones. And so my wife walked out with me, and about 300 people walked out too, all with their iPhones. They were taking their pictures. And Millie asked, "You want me to take those pictures for you?" So it took about 45 minutes at least to go through that, taking picture after picture. And at the end, she made this famous statement: "Now I know what those Dallas Cowboy wives feel like." I love Brazil. I love China. I've spoken in 52 countries. I've traveled in 82 countries now around the world. And the books are in many, many languages that I have the privilege to say, I've got friends and followers all over the world.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. And I have had the privilege of meeting your lovely wife, Millie. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Tyler's early days and what is he doing now?
Well, he'll be 55 this year, and he's the president and CEO of the operation. But now I'm still the chairman and founder. But no, he's done a wonderful job because we've done a lot of renovations over last year. We've added 4 pickleball courts, by the way. We've added a second floor to the fitness center. And we have more people than we can handle, as I say. People are coming in just to get guest pass so they can play at our pickleball courts. We have 4 tennis courts. We have 2 swimming pools. We have a 1 mile, half mile, and a quarter mile jogging track. And we have Canada geese like you can't believe. We can't get rid of them. And they tend to mess up the tracks all the time. But it's been highly successful. And now the mayor of Dallas recently said the Cooper Clinic has now become a landmark for Dallas. So we've been able to overcome all this resistance and problems we've had. Speaking of the Dallas County Medical Society, they're the ones that had me go before the Board of Censors back in the early days because I was doing something against dangerous treadmill stress testing. As you mentioned, I did work with NASA. Bill Thornton and I transferred from the Army to the Air Force to go into this scientific program for the astronauts, become a scientist astronaut. And that was my plan. And so we had a responsibility there to develop a technology to get a readable EKG on an exercising subject. Back in those early 60s, it wasn't possible. There's too much artifact. And to have an astronaut in a vehicle in space or extravehicular and not know what the heart rate is doing, the EKG is doing, could be a catastrophe. So we had developed the technology, and that's the way we developed the technology that's now being used everywhere with treadmill stress testing. The other thing, we had to develop a program for the astronauts to use in space to prevent them from losing their baroreceptors. We all have a baroreceptor in our body that keeps us adjusted to compensate for gravity. Otherwise, we'd all pass out and we stand up. So we had bed rest studies. Basically, everyone had to lie on the back in their bed for a period of 2 weeks. And during that time, we had half of them exercise with a bicycle ergometer, just ergometer on the end of the bed, so they could exercise 35 twice a day. The other group didn't do anything. And then we used the flag test, which they sit on a saddle to see if lost their ability to be able to tolerate 1G. There was a dramatic difference there. Those who exercised didn't lose their baroreceptors. Those that did lost that. And so now that's a training program being used by the astronauts in space. And that's the EKGs that they're now using, we developed. I was even asked to join the Space Corps that's preparing to go to Mars. And I said, I'm too old to get involved in that now. But the man that came up and asked me to participate is a board-certified emergency physician, and he's planning on traveling with the group to go to Mars. And so that's in the background happening now. So I'm still involved at a distance with NASA. I enjoyed working with them. They gave me some great opportunities. But why did I finally give up on trying to become a scientist astronaut? Because Bill and I worked so hard. By 1970, I felt that I was a lieutenant colonel, and soon being promoted to a full colonel, that I was successful in the military. They said, you might stay in and you might become the surgeon in the Air Force. I was successful. A friend of mine wrote a book entitled Halftime. He talks about you may be dissatisfied with what you're doing with your profession. Well, halfway through your life, why don't you change? Why don't you stop and do something again? Go back to school, do something again. Because you can be successful. I was successful in the eyes of the military, but I wasn't significant. That was what I felt. So that's why I gave it all up. And now what has happened? I am successful and significant around the world. I give God the credit for that.
Walking through the halls of the Cooper Medical Center is like a hall of fame. You've got photos of presidents, actors from the black and white era, professional athletes. I remember seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger there, Al Pacino. Like it is something else, I tell you. And speaking of the Cooper Medical Center, compared to most medical clinics where people would go to get an annual checkup or whatever, where they may have 10, 15 minutes with a doctor, a quick check, and then on your way. When a person comes to the Cooper Medical Center, usually once or twice a year, it is a day or even a few days event, right? And this is something that is really, really different about this experience. From the morning, you begin your testing, and then the results start to come in, and then you have your consultations with the doctors. And which doctors? A few different ones. You'll have a consultation with the nutritionist. You'll have a consultation with the cardiac specialist, and then you'll also have a consultation with the fitness instructor. And then they'll take you to the fitness center, and they'll show you which program you should be doing. It's the most comprehensive lifestyle and health program that anyone will ever experience in the world. So the Cooper Aerobics Center at Dallas, Texas is not just a fitness center. It's not only a 5-star hotel. It's not only a swimming and recreation center for children and families. Not only a medical center, not only a beauty spa and relaxation, and a research facility where you've got the Cooper Institute there. It is an absolute beast of an operation with, as you said, hundreds of different people all working together on the same mission. Now, I asked Keith a question about this a few weeks ago. Keith, in an organization this big with so many different moving parts, so many different experts and people from all different backgrounds and fields, how do you get everyone on the same page, following the same mission, where you've got fitness managers that have worked there for 40 plus years, like Carla, I remember meeting her. Like, how do you create a business like this where everyone, once they start working with Cooper, that's it for life?
Well, one of the things that I learned while there is that all the people who work at Cooper have the same personal value system. So a lot of the success was due to hiring practices, looking for people who have the same passion, the same belief in health and wellness, and most of the time the same faith. So it's hiring people and letting them fulfill their dreams and their mission through Dr. Cooper's vision. And they all come here being inspired by Dr. Cooper and watching what he does. So Dr. Cooper practices what he preaches. Everything he does, from his faith, the way he values his family, the way he values his employees, and the way he celebrates his employees, inspires them to continue on Dr. Cooper's mission.
Absolutely. And Carrie, I'm just going to ask a question of you here. You've heard a few comments here about faith and praising the Lord and inspiration that has helped carry Dr. Cooper through this journey. Here we've got a scientist, a professor, a doctor, a person who has built his entire life on research and data and facts. And he is an absolute avid believer and Christian, and it has been the compass for him throughout his life. How do you make sense of that?
That's a very interesting question. Well, I mean, what's coming to my mind right away is where your thoughts go, your energy flows, and, having something that is a guiding light for you. The whole time Dr. Cooper has been speaking, he has repeatedly mentioned, I give the glory to the Lord. And he's working for something clearly that's so much bigger than himself, draws inspiration from there, strength from there. It seems to be a guiding light. And the proof is in what has come of it, right? He has this deeply held faith, and it has touched, sounds like tens of thousands, I'm sure more than that, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives. And so when we're deeply connected to something and it fills our heart, the Bible says takes out a heart of stone and puts one in of flesh, and it causes us to have love for others and to work with an upright heart. The Bible teaches to be above reproach and to walk in truth and in love and draw your strength. It says, do not fear. And so I can see all of those things being a contributor to the success.
And let me quote a famous Bible verse that I refer to frequently. It's Isaiah 40:31. Those who wait upon the Lord will mount wings and soar like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They'll not faint. That's what I talk about. Regain strength. Wait upon the Lord. I appreciate your comments on that, because I wouldn't be here today because 95% of my medical school classes already died. Why? I asked my wife, I wonder why I'm still alive. And she said, because the Lord is not through with you yet. I hope and pray that is true. I still am enjoying good health at my advanced stage, but I'm trying to set the example that people can perform. I'm reaching probably the peak of my career. And now in my 95th year, that's unheard of. It's just something like that. Why? Because the Lord gave me the strength and the mind to continue doing this over the years. There's been many miracles that happen. You'll read about them in the book. But one is, how did we get here on this beautiful location? Back in those early days, when I first came to Dallas, I was trying to find a place that we could build what this ideal thing we have here, and all written up in my mind and all. And I discovered this property that had the beautiful lakes, the old mansion and all that. But Mrs. Clarice Nichols was the one who owned the property. And her husband had put this together, a total of 22 acres. And I could only handle 8.6 acres to get the property. And she turned us down 3 times. And I asked the real estate agent, ask her one more time. I really feel we've asked her one more time. And she asked the question, is he the one that wrote the book on exercise? I just said, yes. And she said, for him, I will do it. Why? Because I was still in the Air Force. Millie and I both went to Colorado Springs to speak for Howard E. Butt Layman's Leadership Institute. We gave a testimony there, and she was sitting in the audience, and she heard our testimony. And at that time, she said, I hope one of these days I can do something to help that couple. And now we have a tree planted here with a plaque honoring Mrs. Clarice Nichols. That's just one of many miracles you'll find in the book. That's why we're still here today.
Oh, amazing. And Dr. Cooper, let's now move on to your latest book, Grow Healthier as You Grow Older. What was the inspiration for that book, and what can people expect when they read it?
Okay, the first thing is to get Cooperized. Let's go down those 8 steps because that's very important. Number 1 on the list is get your weight under control. Obesity is ubiquitous throughout the world. And you can't be healthy and be obese, all there is to it. As over the years, we've used the body mass index. Take the weight in kilograms divided by the height in meters squared. You can type in your height and your weight into the internet and you get the BMI. 18 to 25 is normal. 25 to 30 is overweight. 30 to 35 is obese. Above 35 is morbidly obese. But they're missing something there because that considers the body is a cylinder. But most people aren't a cylinder. They have a beer belly. They have a pot belly. And that's where the visceral fat, the bad fat, is located. So you need to measure the circumference of your waist. And what you do, get the body mass index, go to the internet to get that, measure the circumference of your waist, take your height in inches or centimeters and divide it by 1/2, and that should be the maximum circumference of your waist. If you're 6 foot in height, that's 72 inches, your maximum circumference should be no more than 36 inches. That's the way you do that. Next on that list is proper diet. I would say without question, the Mediterranean diet is probably the best diet. But my rule of thumb I follow is 5 is fine, 9 is divine. Number of servings of fruits and vegetables should be consuming per day. I know commonly, I had grapefruit this morning. I'll have a pear. I had two fruits yesterday morning. I start the day by getting my fruits in too. So I do it. The average American handles 5.1. The average American teenager is 1.6 servings per day. Next on that list is your vitamin supplementation. I strongly recommend a good multivitamin like we have, or Cooper Basic one. But the big thing we need to do throughout the world, since this is a problem all over the world, is prevent coronavirus. We've had these in the past with COVID-19. We'll have them in the future. No question about it. But we found that vitamin D, our research, other research around the world, has shown that if you have a high level of vitamin D, you get too much from the sun, you get skin cancer. But if you don't take enough supplement, you can't protect yourself from that cytokine storm. It's what causes the problem with the virus, because you get the virus comes in and it's aggravated by the body's hyperimmune response. It damages it, goes to the lungs, causes pneumonia to die. And the number one cause of death is being over 65 years of age from coronavirus. And number two is obesity, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So you should be taking at least 5,000 units, international units, or 125 milligrams of vitamin D per day. That's the next thing. Next on that list is probably the most important. How much exercise do you need? I've got to cut down to as simple as you must get 30 minutes, collective or succinct. I don't care what your heart rate is. I want you to get 30 minutes of some type of aerobic activity. And there's 41 different aerobic activities in my book, Aerobics, and they get that most days a week. That translates to 150 minutes per week aerobic activity. I had to stop jogging after 30,000 miles in 40 years. Run the Boston Marathon twice, as you know, there are 40-miler once, because I broke my leg snow skiing about 21 years ago. And so I had to stop jogging and running. But I didn't stop exercise. I transitioned to recumbent cycling. So I get 30 minutes of recumbent cycling daily, along with my weight training, because we have a rule, too, that you follow. As you get older, you need to adjust your type of activity. In your 30s, you get 80% aerobic, 20% musculoskeletal condition. In your 70s and your 30s, it's 70% and 30%. And it goes to 60 and 40, get past 50, 55. It's roughly half and half, 55 and 45. You do that because you have sarcopenia that begins at age 50, and that you start losing muscle mass. Those people watching this video, they're using these new drugs like GLP to lose weight rapidly. You have to realize they're losing muscle mass when they lose this weight so rapidly. You got to do something. We have a special program by our dietitians here now. We're recommending the people in adults. You got to need to involve in a special program of your diet and get some weight training in to avoid that. So that's very important. But just remember, 30 minutes collective or sustained, 150 minutes per week is exactly what is recommended by the American College of Sports Medicine and the American Heart Association. Next on that list is to eliminate tobacco. Don't use tobacco in any form. There's nothing good to be said about even vaping. Next on that list is something that's controversial. Over the years, we've said a drink a day for a woman and 2 a day for women would be acceptable. But now we know if a man drinks 14 drinks a week, he's shortened his lifespan by 1.5 to 2 years in a major study. But the major thing we've discovered, too, that alcohol, whether it's beer, wine, or hard liquor, can cause cancer. We know that. Now, it's well proven. And you start cancer of the mouth, cancer of the esophagus, cancer of the larynx, and cancer of the intestine, and cancer of the breast. There are at least 20 to 30,000 women will die this year from cancer of breast as a result of drinking alcohol. Don't drink. Or if you do drink, limit it. But I don't drink at all. I don't smoke, and I'm not planning to start. That's very, very important. Next on that list is stress management. But one of my major books was entitled "Can Stress Heal?" Because I have lots of stress. If I didn't exercise the other day before I go home, because fitness is a journey, not a destination, I couldn't sleep at night, because we need to get 7 hours of sleep a night. That's one of the major things that we use to prevent dementia. We know that. And so the final thing is to get an examination. You mentioned examination we have here, which is classified as number 2 in America, the quality of our exam. Oh, the Cleveland Clinic is ahead of us. And we're at number 2, and Duke is number 3, Johns Hopkins is number 4, and Mayo Clinic is number 5. So we've had that level of acceptance for at least the last 20 years. So we have the number 2 premier examination in America. Because people come to this clinic, we want to prevent disease. If we can't prevent it, diagnose it early. But what can the average person do if they can't come to this clinic? And by the way, when people come to the clinic, I can't afford the cost of the exam. I like to ask them, what did you pay for the insurance on your car last year? What did you pay for the insurance on your house last year? You can buy a new car. You can build a new house. You got one body. But our body is so uniquely designed. The most common first symptom of severe underlying heart disease is sudden death. Keep that in mind. And we've saved lives by the hundreds, if not the thousands, by picking up with our treadmill stress test. People have severe coronary disease and don't know it. We've done over 300,000 max performance treadmill stress tests. 16.1% were abnormal. Only 5% knew they had a problem. So 10% of the people coming to this clinic have an abnormal stress test. They didn't know have a problem. We immediately do a CT angiogram. We do a coronary calcification score. And on a routine, 2 or 3 times a week, people come here. It's an average of 40 people per day. They'll come here and end up in the hospital within 3 or 4 hours of coming to the clinic and have an angioplasty stent. That happens all the time because the body is so uniquely designed. It can cover those problems until it's too late. But what the person is going to do? Go to a physician, ask to get your height and weight, and get your waist circumference. Get that, and you should meet those standards. You can go to the index and get the body roundness index. Now, the BRI, that'll figure that for you. And next, get your CBC, your blood count, your urinalysis, and get your laboratory studies, particularly your lipid profile, your cholesterol, and your triglyceride. But something else they need to get to, but physicians aren't doing this, is measure the C-reactive protein, because that measures inflammation. Inflammation is not diagnosed routinely, and yet inflammation is a major risk factor. We know you can have a brain full of amyloid pi and tau protein is consistent with what's related to Alzheimer's dementia, but it never develops. It has to have something to develop to light the spark, have the spark that lights the fire, and that is chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is increased by obesity and inactivity. And you can take omega-3, and I take one twice a day along with my vitamin. And they can do that. And then give them recommendations, but they have to go through the whole process that we're doing at the present time. You know, too, those 8 basic things we recommend as being Cooperized. And as Keith knows, we're working with a group in Henan now, the possibility of having a hospital there that'll have medical tourism. You probably know about that. And they have the 5 hospitals. Lozora has these 5 hospitals. And they are basically preventive and then acute care and the rehabilitative care. And they want the one in Henan to be a medical tourism spot. That's an ideal thing to have, where people can come there and go through a Cooper Clinic type examination. They've been to Dallas. They videoed everything we do here to duplicate our Cooper Clinic examination there on the island of Henan. And they want to have the Cooper name. We're working on that right now, as Keith knows, to have the Cooper name that be associated with that to draw people from throughout the world to come and have a Cooper Complete examination there and then implement the program while they're there. They're building a 1,500-seat auditorium, underwater restaurant, fantastic lodging facility. People come there, can stay there, start the program, and get Cooperized and enjoy the rest of their life. Now, I've even asked the State Department if I can do that. I've got permission now to work with China from the State Department and the National Security Agency. So I have that privilege. And as Keith knows, we're working on the final contract now. So we're trying to get our message around the world. And again, I say if that happens, praise the Lord. You know, there are more evangelical Christians in China than there are in the United States. Do you know that? And so we have a listening audience in China. You probably know we had the Cooper Aerobics Park there in the suburbs of Beijing, owned by my partner there, William Cooper Wu. And what we did, since I heard President Xi talk about the situation they have with the obesity in Chinese children, we dedicated 10 acres to Extra Vital Lake, this first Cooper Aerobics Park for children. There's a famous picture of we walking with my little Maltese dog, because Cooper says he walks his dog. I do it every day. I have to. My dogs insist I do. You walk your dog whether you have one or not, is what I've said. But they unveiled before 150 million Chinese people a 7-foot statue of me walking, marble statue walking with my dog. So I'm all over China. And I'm delighted to say that. Approved by the government, I can do that. And with Keith working with us, we have to hope to have this thing underway before long there on the island of Henan. It's a worldwide dream.
I do remember in Beijing, this 7-foot statue there of you walking with your dog. That's very, very impressive. Dr. Cooper, I heard a little bit of a funny joke about the reason why you speak so quickly. What's the reason for that?
Because for 66 years, I've been trying to finish a sentence before my wife does. She never likes silence, I can assure you. If she meets people before I meet them, I have nothing left to say. She's the best PR I could possibly have. But at times I wish she would not be so vociferous.
I literally have like 2 pages worth of notes. Dr. Cooper, this has been amazing. But the most pressing one that I would love to get your opinion on, and I'm very passionate about it as well. I come from insurance, more like corporate insurance, employee benefits background, and going through the health journey that I went through the last few years. I've been very passionate on trying to get preventative measures, activities, resources into corporations so that they can give those to their employees. It's been my firm belief that if we can go through the employer, where most people, if it's not covered by their insurance, they don't get it. They won't go and get that type of preventative treatment. But if we can go through the employer and sort of change that dynamic of, well, is it covered by my insurance? Sure, I'll go do it. Right. Because I think that's the big issue right now with a lot of folks in the United States is they don't want to do those out-of-pocket experiences. You had mentioned earlier that you were working with resurrecting preventative medicine, and that really stood out to me. And I wanted to pick your brain on what steps do you believe needs to happen to
As I
response?
said, physicians say I can't practice preventive medicine because it isn't taught in medical school. Anything I learned about preventive medicine, I learned at 2 years of Harvard School of Public Health, Masters of Public Health the first year, and exercise physiology the second year. But we're trying to get, with those documentaries I mentioned, the person is going to a physician, try to educate them. There is the American Academy of Lifestyle Medicine now. You can become certified, like be certified in internal medicine or cardiology, become certified now by the American Lifestyle of Preventive Medicine. So that's the thing we've been trying to get underway. But when the physicians say that I can't practice preventive medicine, number one, I don't know anything about it. Number two, I don't have time to do it. And number three, it's not covered by insurance. You're exactly right on that. So we're trying to get the insurances to come around. And some insurance companies now are paying a part or all the examinations and the cost when they come to this claim. We're trying to get an edge in that now. Because why do people exercise in general? Well, why they give you an example why they don't exercise? Because TEMPF. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the money. I don't have the motivation. I don't have the place, and it's not fun. Those excuses I get why people don't exercise. I've got the excuses from the people. I've got the excuses from the musicians, but we've got answers in the book that can answer that. I think this new book could start a global revolution in trying to improve the health of people around the world and motivate physicians to stop and say, to take some of those. I said before, I was taught in medical school that preventive medicine is Cinderella of the medical spectrum, with no profit in health because you can't be successful. Look at us. And Ed knows this, having been here. We had the premier fitness center probably in the country, if not the world, which we had the combination, all in here, medical supervised, and we have physicians on call all the time the center is open. We have full-time medical care associated with our fitness center. Combining the two is ideal. Combine preventive medicine with exercise with medicine, and you've got the ideal for the future of medicine in the world. And people have to understand that there's no drug can replicate the benefits of an active lifestyle. That's the most important thing I can say today. No drug can replicate the benefits of an active lifestyle. And your life, your longevity, your quality of life, as I'm enjoying in my advanced years, can be yours too if you take control of it yourself. No one's not going to do it for you.
That's my epitome moment. Dr. Cooper, you have spoken about faith and also family. Let's zoom out a little bit. Like, tell us about faith and family and how that has an important role in your life and your health and your own longevity.
Well, I've said for years that you have to have harmony in your home by having God at the top, family second, and work third. Unfortunately, those early days, it was tough. Going through bankruptcy, everybody on my back and all that. I flipped it upside down and then realized I was leaving my wife behind. I didn't have time. I was leaving my kids behind. And so my wife, I started getting her involved, and that's why she wrote Aerobics for Women, get her involved. So she had a voice to speak. I was speaking all over the country, all over the world about aerobics, but she had a voice too. So that's the thing, keep our priorities right. God at the top, family second, work third. But the second thing that happened too is that my kids were young during those early days, Tyler particularly. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to work with him. So we've done some work over the years to make up for that. We've had 12 international trips now that Tyler made around the world, just the two of us, going to these various places. With the Galapagos Islands, we've gone to Brazil, we've gone to Manaus, and all these various places. We've gone to Antarctica twice. things like that. Svalbard, north of Sweden. We've done those together. But I'm going to finish with this final one because this is one it's well written in the book, and I'll remember it the rest of my life. This happened in 1989 when there were 6 fathers and sons to go to Tanzania to climb Kilimanjaro. So went there. We trained in Kenya, 10,000 feet, when we were running about 3 or 4 miles a day for about a week. And then going across the border, going from Kenya to Tanzania, they wouldn't let me across because I had a stamp in my passport from South Africa. Gary Player is a very good friend of mine. I've been to South Africa twice. You cannot be legally in Tanzania because you have a stamp in your passport from South Africa. Had a guy with us. What can I do? He said, maybe I can help you. Came back for a few minutes and I said, what's it going to cost me? He said, $35. I can handle that. So I bribed myself to get across the border. That night, we had the briefing at the base of the mountain. And so we were told that the dangers there, you get cerebral edema at 19,600 feet, which is Kilimanjaro. Thus, you get a severe headache. If you don't get off the mountain and get oxygen, you can die. Also, you're losing brain cells at that altitude. And I thought, now, Tyler, we get that briefing. I had to take chamber flights as a flight surgeon in the Air Force. I take pilots and future flight surgeon up to 43,000 feet altitude chamber, which the time of useful consciousness is only about 45 seconds. Then we have a rapid decompression down to 25,000 feet. I had to take my mask off and write my name, rank, and serial number. And before long, they kept their mask on. But I'd be doing this, just scribbling, put my mask back on. I couldn't believe that. That would have happened to you if you had lost your mask at 25,000 feet. I said, Tyler, I don't think I should make this trip. I've had that. I don't need to lose any more brain cells. So they left. The next day, I had a time there by myself. And so I did arrange to go up to the 14,000 foot up and back. I was in good shape to do that without any difficulty. The next morning, though, I had to find my way back to the border. I found this guy that had a boatsman, and he spoke a little English, but was most impressed because he had followed the Dallas CV search. And I said, well, Linda Gray has been one of my patients. She's one of the stars of that. But as we got closer to the border, I realized I'm in deep trouble. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was 1989. And I was sweating blood, standing in line before they go through the security there. And 2 people in front of me. And this beautiful white woman dressed in white came up beside me in perfect English, said, Dr. Cooper, I've been waiting for you. Give me your passport. She took my passport, went up, opened it up in front of the agent. And with a certain voice, she said, stamp it. He stamped it, wrapped it, closed it back up, gave it back to me. I want to thank the woman there. No one there. No one there. I couldn't find her. No one saw her except me and the agent. By dying days, I think the Lord provided an angel for me alive. I've written articles now for 5 years in Decision Magazine. That's the Franklin Graham organization. And he's one of the testimonies in the book. The back of this book is Franklin Graham. He has a section in his Decision Magazine, goes to about 750,000 people around the world, entitled Body and Soul. He talks about the soul, I talk about the body. I've had every other month this little segment that I've written, 30 of these over the years, and recommendations of what you should do. Latest ones that we're having a decline as far as fitness in America and the health of America, all these various things. Very timely type of hydrate, that's one of the titles of it. And they've been very, very popular. I've had more response from these articles published in Decision Magazine ever had from one of the 700 articles we published in peer-reviewed journal. And so with that, I've told Franklin, this is my last one. The last one is how long can you prolong life? And this amazing story just came out. This woman who lives out to 117 years. And she was born in San Francisco, but went on Catalonia in Spain and died over in Spain. And she had the genetics to live longer. But she did everything to be Cooperized, too. They say she drank olive oil, quite a lot of olive oil, and all of that. But that's the last article that I've written in Decision Magazine. This is my swan song, my book, too, my last one. But we're going to compile that, 30 of them now, into a booklet form. And I'm going to give that to the Billy Graham organization, Franklin Graham. You can do whatever you want to it, and any money comes to that, you take that. I want nothing to do with it. So I think that's some of those divine directions I've had in my life to try to promote Christianity around the world, because I certainly wouldn't be here today if it hadn't been for God's guidance. If you'd asked me 55 years ago, if I could have predicted what I'm doing today, I'd have missed 1,000-fold, because my vision was finite, but obviously the Lord's was infinite.
Wow, amazing. And in many of your books, you do speak about squaring off the curve. A lot of people have a downward curve towards throughout their life where their health declines over the decades. But you talk about squaring off the curve, which is having highest quality of life until
Let me tell you that this is where, and this is a study that we had of the 100,000 people, 30,000 women, 70,000 men, and we got their death certificates and found that they were dying. They were squaring off the curve. They were dying, being happy lives until the fullest, then dying later in life. They were condensing the time of senility and senescence into a short period, immediate part of death. What do you want? It's an ideal thing to do. Praise the Lord, at my age, in my 95th year, I haven't lost that. Praise the Lord, I say that. But that's possible. That's possible if you follow these recommendations of the book. Even in advanced years, I don't care if you're, as long as you got life, there is hope for change. We've had people that start the program at 65, 70 years of age, and we can see an improvement in the treadmill test as they come back. It's amazing. Our bodies are uniquely designed, and Genesis said they should last us 120 years. They don't last because we wear them, because we rust out. We don't wear them out, we rust out. And so that can still be changed. And that's amazing that you can be in advanced years and still see these changes occur that may prolong the quality and quantity of your life. And as I said before, if that happens to you who are viewing this video today, to God be the credit.
I met you when you were about 80 or 81 years old. It's like you're living in a time capsule. You have not changed at all since I've met you. In fact, probably even more vibrant than those back in those days. I'm just going to quickly shoot over to Carrie because we're almost out of time. Carrie, just your final thoughts or any important questions you'd like to ask Dr. Cooper?
Well, yeah, something I've been thinking the whole time is if somebody hasn't read your books and they're not totally familiar with what do you mean by aerobics, number one, but a second part to that is since you've written that book and started kind of that movement, we've understood a lot more science about the weightlifting and putting stress on the bones in a different way. I know you spoke to that a little. You were saying, percentages, 70% aerobic, 30% weightlifting. But how has that shifting? So how do you define aerobics? And how is that shifted as far as aerobics and our need to stress our bones with?
Okay, the official definition of aerobics in the Oxford English Dictionary, published 1986, is as follows. It's a method of exercise for producing beneficial changes in respiratory and circulatory systems, activities which require only a modest increase in oxygen intake and so can be maintained. Everybody's talking about the aerobic capacity, the amount of oxygen you consume. That's all what the book is about. To increase the body's capacity to utilize oxygen is what aerobics is. As far as weight training, yes. But you can become over-muscled like you can become over-fat, and the body's going to suffer either way. So you have to balance those things. Because, again, if you're getting muscle by using anabolic steroids, you can die early. I can guarantee you. You want to avoid that completely. But we use light weights and high rapidity. We don't use heavy weights. We want to build up muscle tone, not muscle mass. I'm going through a procedure now because of a fracture of my leg so skinny, as I said many years ago. So I've lost the strength in my right quadricep muscle, here from the knee up into the groin. And I had a dead muscle there compared to the left. And I was getting a lot of imbalance for fear of falling. So there's a new technique called muscle activation technique, provided by physical trainers. I'm going through that now, and I have regenerated the nerve supply to the muscle in my right leg, even in my advanced age. So don't tell me you're too old. That's not supposed to happen to a person who is in his 95th year. And so those are muscle things. But again, the point for his muscle training is you concentrate on light weights and high rapidity, not bulk.
First off, I can't wait to visit and get my examination at your institution. I look forward to doing that at some point in the near future. And I will certainly be reaching out to you and Keith when I do so, and maybe take Carrie with me. And we'll document that. We want to help Cooperize America. I love, and I wrote down the fact that you Cooperized, that when people run in Brazil, they say I'm Cooperized, like I'm doing the Cooper. Like, I love that. And I literally, my note right below that was, how about Dallas Cowboys? Have the Dallas people been asking you to Cooperize the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, when Tom Landry was the coach of the Dallas Cowboys, we were winning Super Bowls back in those days. He made them use the 12-minute test. And the lineman had to run 2,400 meters or a mile and a half in 12 minutes. And the backs had to run 1 3/4 miles in 12 minutes. That was a standard requirement. But the latest coaches, they don't do that anymore. The Dallas Cowboys haven't done very well, as you know. But again, it's just a dream come true to have this podcast today.
As you mentioned before, Dr. Cooper hasn't changed in the 15 or so years that you've known him. I can assure you he's as passionate or more passionate about his beliefs than ever. I call Dr. Cooper a scientician because not only is he a physician, but he's done tremendous amount of research to prove his theories and to make it all factual. It's not if, it is a fact. And these are the things you have to do if you want to live a longer, healthier life.
Yeah, let me tell you a couple of things here first. It wasn't because I trained the Brazilian soccer team to win the World Cup in 1970 in Mexico City. It's because they had Pele playing them for them. That was the reason that they won, I can assure you. But the combination of no, and Keith has been such a great supporter over the years. He's working with us now with this project that we have. So again, let's take it the next step. You're doing the same thing I'm doing. Let's Cooperize China. Let's get involved in the program. In fact, Tyler and I both pledged we ought to Cooperize China by the year 2030. That's the goal we have for you. You're going to help us implement that in China.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on board. For our listeners and viewers listening to the Masters of Wellness podcast, today we've talked about Dr. Cooper's background, his history, his incredible journey over 55 years since the Cooper Aerobics Center opened in Dallas, Texas. We've also talked about the Cooper 8 habits. For our listeners out there and our viewers, start with one habit. The one that has the most bang for buck is moving your body, starting exercise, because that one actually helps you to be inspired to improve all of the others. I had a client that started exercise. That inspiration of his feeling and his endorphins of exercise helped him to quit drinking and quit smoking and make better choices for food. So certainly that's the one that I believe, and I think Dr. Cooper agrees, moving your body is the one that has the most amount of positive effect and will help to affect the others. Is that correct?
I agree entirely. So just remember, your life is your responsibility, nobody else. You know, from this video, you'll be impressed to do something. And just consider, take that first step. You can just walk for 12 minutes. So just don't ignore obvious facts. We've got them. And that's why this book is based upon facts, not other ways in which we're trying to make America healthy again. It's based on facts. We're trying to work from that end of it too.
Fantastic. We will include links to the Cooper Aerobics Center, also links to find the book, Grow Healthier as You Grow Older. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and loved ones. You never know how you may be helping to change or improve someone's life by sharing this information with the people that you know. Thank you, everyone on the panel, for joining today. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor, Dr. Cooper. We look forward to our next episode with you again in the near future. Thank you.